We're first going to dive in here and take a look at our good old trusty reports. And these host reports are a lot like my old car in the driveway, and that is actually my car. It's an old Chevy. It's got about 160,000 miles on it. I can fill that. I just last week filled it up, took a daughter to college. Can put a lot of people in there because it's got 7 seats. And at 160,000 miles, I'm really happy it's still running. And that's what our host reports are like. They're very functional. They've been around a long time, and they do offer you quite a bit. Now, do they have all the bells and whistles that perhaps the client report has? No. But do they have a place in your repertoire for building reports? Probably yes. They've got a lot more formatting options than just a view. I'm able to add some spacing in there. I can also do calculations at subtotals, grand totals, conditional calculations, and level break calculations. And we'll take a glance at some of those. Now, this host report still creates a spool file, but in the history of SQL, the spool file has come a long way. Way back when I first started with SQL, we just made a spool file and everybody printed everything. And it was that long ago. Trust me, you were printing on green bar paper back then. But then with the inclusion of eSend and the integration of eSend into SQL, we were able to create PDF, text, and Word documents out of our spool files. And even better, we're able to email those. So once that happened, we saw a new interest again in the host reports. They're really easy to run in batch. And we still need a view because the view is what extracts the data from the files. And the variables that you can use will exist only in those views. But they are pretty handy, and they create some just very straightforward reports. Here's one that's a little bit more involved. We've got a customer address block there that has their number, their name and address, and so on. We got a little spacing around the column headings. We've suppressed some detail, and we've added some calculations. And probably the most interesting calculation here is the one at the bottom that says number of orders. It's not just simply a count of how many lines there are, it's just a count of how many orders per customer. And that's what we're going to take a look at, are a few of these things within the host report. So I'm going to go ahead and bring over viewpoints. So hopefully you're now seeing my viewpoint Explorer screen. And if I wanted to create a really simple report, I could do that very quick, down and dirty, by just finding my view and saying report. And I'm going to walk us through the wizard very quickly. And there's 4 steps to this wizard. And the first one is really just to ask if we need a title and a footing and page size. Then I get a list of all of the fields from my view, and it just wants me to say, yes, I'd want to include those, or I don't, and is the order correct? Then I have every numeric field from my view here, and I'm being asked if I want a subtotal. I really only want to subtotal the extended price. And then I'm being asked on my 4th and final step, where do I want to see the subtotals? And so I can pick which level I'd like to see totals or grand totals at. I can go ahead and click finished, and it'll think for a moment as it formats the report. And then pretty quickly there, I have a very workable report. I do have to save the report as a separate object. It's a separate object in the view. And right from here, I could display this. And I can either just do a quick display, or I could actually say display the results in PDF. Now, as I mentioned, a lot of the use of the host report is probably to email it as PDF. So I would recommend you take a look at what it looks like in the PDF formatting. And it's thinking here for a second, and there it is. And that's how quickly I can get a report. Now I can add all the fancy stuff to this, or I could just take it as it is. And it's several pages here, many customers with a grand total, and it's very workable. Now the report that I teased you with in the PowerPoint, where I showed you a more involved layout, I did take the liberty of setting that up ahead of time, just so that you didn't have to watch me design that. And also we wanted to save some time on this webinar today to show you more about the client reports. And so I'm just going to jump into this designer and give you a feel for what this could look like. I can add as many lines as I need to each format. I can move fields around. I can suppress the field from reprinting at every line of detail. And what's really fun, what I really like to do, is I can create some calculations. And I've got all kinds of calculations in here. I even have one that's a before record read calculation to initialize or set something to 0. And I have calculations that are done at particular level breaks, as well as just a straight up subtotal type calculation. And that's where the power of the host report can come in, is through the calculations and the additional formatting.